For decades, Johnny Depp existed as a public contradiction. To audiences, he was the fearless chameleon, disappearing into eccentric roles while living what appeared to be a life of excess, rebellion, and Hollywood chaos. But the image the world consumed was never the full story. In recent years, Depp has begun speaking, carefully, sparingly, and without spectacle, about how disconnected that public persona was from the person underneath. Fame, he suggests, didn't elevate him so much as it buried parts of him. The noise, the scrutiny, the expectation to perform even off-screen slowly eroded his sense of self. What people mistook for mystery was often exhaustion. What they labeled arrogance was, at times, withdrawal. His recent reflections aren't pleas for sympathy or attempts to rewrite history. They are something quieter and more unsettling, acknowledgments of long-standing wounds that success never healed. In stepping back from the spotlight, Depp isn't rejecting his past so much as finally examining it, piece by piece, without the pressure to entertain or explain himself to anyone else. Leaving Hollywood without a goodbye. In 2023, Johnny Depp made a move that surprised even his most devoted followers. Without announcements, farewell interviews, or staged appearances, he quietly left Los Angeles and relocated to the English countryside in Somerset. One moment, he was still loosely tethered to Hollywood's orbit. The next, he was gone. There were no paparazzi photos to mark the transition, no official statements to interpret. For months, his absence fueled speculation, but the reality was far less dramatic. Depp later explained, in a rare and understated comment, that he wasn't disappearing, he was recovering. After years of legal battles, professional rejection, and relentless public judgment, silence became a necessity rather than a strategy. Somerset offered him something Hollywood never could: anonymity without exile. There, his days became slower, less defined by external demands. He walked, read, and lived without an audience. The move wasn't about hiding from the world, but about stepping away long enough to remember who he was when no one was watching. A quiet life. Built on stillness, life in Somerset bore little resemblance to the glamour often associated with Depp's name. Removed from studios, premieres, and constant commentary, his routines became deliberately ordinary. Mornings arrived early. Walks replaced meetings. Books replaced scripts. People who encountered him locally described a man who moved gently through his days, courteous but reserved, unassuming in ways that felt unfamiliar for someone so globally recognizable. This simplicity wasn't accidental. After decades of being examined from every angle, stillness became restorative. He spoke little at first, not out of bitterness, but fatigue. Silence allowed his nervous system to settle, his thoughts to slow. The countryside didn't erase his past, but it softened its grip. In choosing an environment that demanded nothing from him, Depp began reconnecting with moments that fame had long interrupted: quiet concentration, reflection, and rest. The absence of constant validation or criticism gave him space to exist without performance, and for the first time in years, that absence felt like freedom rather than loss. Painting what words couldn't hold away from film sets and interviews, Depp turned more deeply toward visual art, not as a hobby, but as a form of emotional translation. Painting had always been present in his life, but in Somerset, it took on new urgency. The canvases he produced were not designed to impress or provoke, but to release what he had carried internally for years. His work during this period leaned into fragmented imagery, muted palettes, and unsettling quiet, pieces that felt less like statements and more like confessions without language. When his collection later debuted publicly, viewers were struck by how introspective it felt. These were not celebratory portraits or nostalgic reflections, but expressions of rupture, distance, and endurance. Critics described the work as heavy, contemplative, even mournful. For Depp, the reaction mattered less than the process. Painting allowed him to externalize experiences he had never fully articulated: misunderstanding, loss, and emotional survival. In art, he found a place where interpretation was optional and honesty didn't require explanation. Returning to music as grounding music, long before acting, had been Johnny Depp's first refuge. So it wasn't surprising that, as he rebuilt his life away from Hollywood, he found his way back to the guitar. Reuniting with longtime collaborators through the band Hollywood Vampires, Depp returned to the stage not as a spectacle, but as a participant. Those who attended performances noticed a shift. The energy was calmer, more focused, less driven by persona. Playing music became less about proving relevance and more about connection, both to himself and to the people sharing the space. On stage, he appeared present rather than performative, immersed in the act rather than the response. Behind the scenes, bandmates described a man who valued quiet moments, reflection, and restraint. Music no longer served as escape through chaos, but as grounding through rhythm and repetition. In those moments, the past receded. What remained was the simple act of creating sound, of being part of something without needing to lead or dominate it. The shadow of public conflict. No discussion of Depp's transformation can avoid the long shadow cast by his highly public legal battles. The years surrounding those conflicts reshaped his career and public identity in ways that proved deeply destabilizing. As allegations, lawsuits, and media narratives unfolded, he chose silence at times, believing restraint would protect truth. Instead, that silence often allowed assumptions to harden. Professional consequences followed swiftly, and the emotional toll compounded in private. When court proceedings finally brought clarity for some, the outcome did not erase the damage already done. Depp has since described that period as one defined not by victory or defeat, but by survival. The experience stripped away illusions about loyalty, industry support, and public perception. What remained was a deeper understanding of vulnerability and resilience. Even after legal resolution, the emotional residue lingered. Healing did not arrive with verdicts or headlines. It came gradually, through distance, reflection, and the deliberate choice to stop reliving the conflict as a defining chapter of his life. Learning to let the past rest. One of the most striking aspects of Depp's recent public moments has been his refusal to revisit old battles. When asked about past controversies, his responses have been measured, brief, and notably free of bitterness. Rather than defending or revising history, he has emphasized closure and forward movement. This restraint signals a deeper internal shift. For years, pain had demanded constant rehearsal, retelling, re-examining, re-justifying. Letting go required accepting that some misunderstandings would never fully resolve. In Somerset, distance helped transform memory into context rather than identity. He no longer seemed driven by the need to correct every narrative or reclaim every loss. Instead, his focus narrowed to what could be shaped in the present. Friends and observers have noted a calmness that contrasts sharply with earlier years marked by volatility. The past, while acknowledged, no longer dominated his emotional landscape. In choosing not to carry old conflicts forward, Depp created space for something far rarer than redemption: peace without vindication. Returning to work on his own terms. When Johnny Depp eventually returned to public creative work, it was without spectacle or urgency. His reappearance at international film festivals was quiet, deliberate, and understated. The roles he accepted reflected a clear shift away from franchises and toward character-driven stories. These projects did not demand reinvention or apology, only presence. Directors who worked with him during this period described a collaborator who listened more than he spoke, approached scenes with restraint, and carried an emotional depth shaped by lived experience rather than technique. There was no sense of chasing relevance or reclaiming former status. Instead, he approached acting as one medium among many, alongside painting and music, through which expression could occur without pressure. By choosing smaller, more intentional projects, Depp reframed his relationship with his craft. Acting was no longer an identity he had to protect, but a tool he could choose to use when it aligned with where he was, not where others expected him to be. A life no longer defined by applause. At this stage of his life, Johnny Depp appears less interested in legacy than in alignment. The drive that once pushed him toward constant reinvention has softened into something steadier. He is no longer chasing momentum, approval, or spectacle. Instead, he seems committed to preserving the equilibrium he fought hard to regain. Whether he continues acting, painting, making music, or simply living quietly, remains intentionally unresolved. That uncertainty no longer signals instability. It signals choice. His story now resists the traditional arc of downfall and comeback. It is quieter, less marketable, but far more human. By stepping away from the version of himself shaped by expectation, Depp has reclaimed something more durable than fame: autonomy. What remains is not a man defined by controversy or triumph, but one learning to exist without constant evaluation. In that sense, his most radical transformation isn't professional or public, it's personal. And for once, it belongs entirely to him.